COVID rocked this world. For so many people on Earth, life was just going along as usual, and then suddenly there was this crisis. Suddenly life changed. Suddenly there were lockdowns and mask mandates, and travel was restricted and blocked, and businesses and employees and employers struggled to change policy, and many businesses collapsed, and social distancing was imposed, and people were separated and isolated, and there were interpersonal conflicts all over the place. There were vaccine mandates. People were put through experiences where they felt they had no choice when it came to their own bodies. People were dying. There was censorship going on. People were flooded, and I mean flooded, with conflicting information. And this list just goes on and on and on. The human world slipped into extreme distress. People were consumed by uncertainty, confusion, fear, and loneliness as they lost a sense of control over their life experience. Boy, I'm glad we're over all of that, right? I mean, it's been 5 years after all. Life's pretty much gotten back to normal. Hasn't it? Well, the answer is no. In fact, this is one of the biggest gaslights that is happening in human society the world over. Society and human experience with it is not back to normal after COVID. So allow me to un-gaslight you. We're going to do this point by point. 1. There is no after COVID. Unless a person is warned about the possibility of something bad happening, they become aware of that possibility by experiencing it firsthand. For example, unless you're warned about sharks being in the water, you become aware of the possibility of shark attack by seeing one or experiencing one yourself. From that day forward, you know that it's possible, and so you're living with a negative potential. This makes swimming a very different experience, and a worse one. For almost everyone, what happened in COVID times was not something that they could have ever imagined to be possible. It never crossed their minds. But now that everyone has experienced it, everyone knows it can happen. And so the fear of it, or anything like it, happening again is something that people are living with now. You can consider this the foundation of a collective societal case of PTSD. This makes living in the world a very different experience. And yes, a worse one. 2. There was something happening underneath this COVID crisis. That something was a massive power grab. COVID was used as a tool and politicized, as fear so often is, in a power game that has been going on, but that most people didn't actually perceive until COVID. You can think of this power game like a massive, unfortunately very real, game of Risk. The world has fallen under the control of select individuals and the corporations they control who are obsessed with power, and who do not actually have the best interests of others, such as the people of the world, in their mind or in their hearts. This has created a kind of modern power struggle that we only believed to be in the past. And they are playing a very strategic and very dangerous game with each other, and with citizen life. It is as confusing a game that they're playing as the power games that go on in any royal court. These games include both covert and overt tactics, and part of this game is that you are being told that everything is back to normal, and everything is moving forwards, towards more freedom, towards new innovation, towards technology that's going to totally revolutionize the world, etc. That the horrors of the past, things like whole groups of people being targeted for hate, and things like dictatorships, and things like wars, are something that all of us have learned from, and so they're a thing of the past. But I'm sorry to break it to you. We didn't actually learn much from them. The reality is that we are headed towards repeating history and towards recreating the nightmares that we thought could only happen in the past. Most people can feel this reality. They can feel this power game that's being played over their heads. They can feel that things are not okay at all. It's a bit like perceiving a covert war. They're feeling this danger everywhere. They have simply succumbed to normalcy bias, which is a real thing in today's world. And it doesn't matter whether COVID is not the current thing being used in this game anymore. This power struggle is not only still going on, in fact, it is heating up. We are in a time where uncertainty as to what this world is going to look like politically in the future is at an absolute all-time high. So the world doesn't feel good again. 3. It doesn't matter whether you were a supporter of government control during the crisis or whether you were not. Either way, it is undeniable that during the COVID crisis, much of the world got its very first taste of what government control can look and feel like. What people found out very fast is that the government, along with any other authorities, can simply decide something which you're at the mercy of, regardless of whether you think it's in your best interests or not. So many people felt what it feels like for an authority, such as a government, to play a zero-sum game against them. This made people feel like control and freedom and having a say is in fact an illusion. Even the people who think their government should have been stricter so as to keep people safe felt negatively at the mercy of their government. And so what's happened is a big divide between the people and authority figures, especially a divide between the people and their governments. This divide cannot be overstated. During COVID times, the collective lost trust for authorities and lost trust in the government. The tension and distress of living under a government that you don't trust and feel can be against your best interests instead of for your best interests causes serious distress for a person to live with. 4. COVID caused people to slip into perceived powerlessness, a state where people feel they don't have any control over their life experience, most especially bad things happening to them. And this has caused both fear and a kind of apathy in many people. Many people feel like there isn't really a point to putting a lot of effort into trying to attain what they want or to build things up in their life if it can all just go away in a moment without a fight. This perceived powerlessness has happened for many reasons. One of these reasons is that people were blindsided by the whole thing. Another reason is that many people felt like they had absolutely no control over a microscopic organism harming or killing them. Another reason is that many of the control measures that the governments took and forced businesses and individuals to take as well has these many painful consequences that came from that. It's a very painful state of being, to live like you have no control over the life you are living. 5. People lost their trust. So many people in the world now have no trust for anything. I've already explained how COVID caused a loss of trust for the government, but that isn't the only thing that they lost trust in. COVID caused people to lose their trust in the media, in doctors, in businesses, in schools, in friends, in family, in neighbors, in their own bodies, and in the universe, and or what people call God, right? The COVID crisis was a crisis of feeling like you could not rely on anything to act in your best interests. And that trust never came back. The result is that humanity right now is in a very deep state of distrust. 6. Because of all of these points I've mentioned previously, COVID caused humanity to slip into more extreme protector personalities. We all have these aspects of ourselves. You could call them sides to your personality or parts of your personality that are in charge of keeping us safe. We adapt to specific unsafeties in our life by developing these aspects of ourselves, but our protector personalities are out for one thing: our own safety and our own best interests. Because of this, and because of the way they tend to show up in the world, they create more unsafety for other people. This brings about a kind of spiral whereby one person's protector personality causes the protector personality of another person to come up and flare up. When a big unsafety happens, like the COVID crisis, this process is amplified big time. And pretty soon, we're living in a deeply inflamed world where everyone is trying to protect themselves from everything and everyone else. Since COVID, people are really, and I mean really, stuck in their protector personas. And the world has become a much harsher, colder, more painful, and more narcissistic place to be because of it. 7. COVID caused people to slip deep into uncertainty. Uncertainty is a really painful thing for the human psyche. Not just the psyche, the whole human system. The crisis itself came with so much uncertainty. Not knowing what was right or wrong to do, not knowing if you had the correct information, not knowing how long lockdowns are going to last, not knowing if people would be okay or not, or live or die, not knowing how things would turn out, not knowing if you would see people that you were separated from ever again, not knowing if you had job security, not knowing if there would ever be an end to the crisis, not knowing if life would ever return to normal or would never return to normal again. The COVID crisis made tomorrow totally uncertain. This has made it so that people feel no control over the future and as if they cannot plan for the future. And now that humanity has had an experience like this, what it's taught humanity is that they can always be blindsided by something bad. This makes the future feel very uncertain for everyone who's living today, and in a really bad way. People are deep in the angst of this uncertainty. Very few people feel certain that the future will be good. Living with this kind of uncertainty, and even for many people, quite frankly, doom about the future, is tormenting. People in today's world are coping with this psychological/emotional pain in lots of detrimental ways as well. 8, major effects to the economy. Now, this is something that's not often talked about. People don't realize just how much of a bomb COVID was to the economy. It's been largely devastating to global economics. There has been recession, unemployment, and inflation. Some people's financial lives, especially if they worked in an industry that was directly affected by COVID measures, were completely destroyed. Economic recovery, much less economic growth, is in fact proving very difficult to attain. 9, COVID really warped people's sense of time. During the crisis itself, people experienced it like people often experience a trauma, as one big blur. This was compounded by the fact that many of the things that cause a person to be able to track and relate to time, things like routines or changes, or clocking into and out of a job, or celebrating holidays, were suddenly just gone. This was compounded by how surreal everything felt to people, as life as they knew it suddenly changed. A surrealness that, quite frankly, is not totally gone. COVID disoriented people. It messed with every different way that a human being relates to time. And warping of time means trouble with memory as well. And people are still experiencing this. 10, COVID did not bring people closer. It ruptured human connection and relationships. Human beings are a relationally dependent species. Humans have dependency needs. If you want to learn more about this, you can watch my video that's titled Dependency Needs, the thing that no one will accept that they have. The COVID crisis absolutely wreaked havoc to people because of this. From all the interpersonal conflict it caused, to loss of relationships altogether, to social separation, to quarantine, to social distancing, to fearing proximity with one another. It made people deeply lonely. It made people feel detached and disconnected. It made people fear each other. It decreased social support. It affected the way that people enter into relationships with each other. It has negatively affected the way that children have developed socially. It has normalized people to interacting via technology rather than in person. COVID was socially traumatizing. There's no way around that. It made relationships worse, and it made people worse at relationships. And people now have to integrate and heal from all of that trauma. We need to find a way to essentially come back together. And because of all of this trauma, people are in a far worse state of mental health. Right now, it's still the case. You see increased rates of anxiety, depression, stress, PTSD, suicidality, and other forms of emotional distress in the world today. COVID also worsened equality by decreasing the many divides that existed in terms of gender, in terms of labor market, healthcare access, economics, and race. This also decreases people's sense of being mentally and emotionally okay in the world. 11. In this same vein, COVID contributed to a big pushback on globalization. In essence, it created a conscious and very unconscious swing towards nationalism. It has caused countries, both governments and citizens, to go in the direction of erecting barriers and separations between themselves and others. Things like multilateralism, exchange of trade goods, travel, exchange of ideas between people, and immigration are under a progressive crackdown. And this is changing the human experience on Earth in many really negative ways. As with anything, in a world of contrast where positives come from negatives and negatives come from positives, there are positives that have generated from the COVID crisis. This could be its own separate discussion. And some individuals experienced positive changes in their life as well during COVID. But if you're feeling like things went south in 2020 and haven't gotten back to normal, stop wondering if you're crazy. You aren't crazy. You're just living in today's major gaslight. Good week.